Thank you for joining us here today for what I'm sure is going to be a very insightful panel discussion about navigating power structures at workplace. We're going to talk about a lot of different things, but I think the one thing that I would like to begin with is that power structures have a very profound impact on our professional lives, from everyday interactions to career opportunities. And we'll be talking along these lines today, but I'd like to begin with one of the most popular themes regarding power structures, which is in our world today, is hybrid work models. And Ashima, if I may begin with you, do you think that hybrid work models have had a significant impact on power structures in that they do not exist as we conventionally understood them? What do you think may have been, what do you think has changed in the aftermath of the pandemic?
Okay, Akansha has given me a pretty long question. I'll try to memorize and answer it. Let me start with putting the very obviouses, right? When we say about power structures, so, power structures are their social life, they are there with your corporate lives. And if I talk about the corporate life, then the old power structures were really top-down approach or the hierarchy based, right? India is pretty much about the ruling country where we used to have the kings, and then, that's how the power used to be, and it was very autocratic. And similarly in the corporate world, this kind of a structure was there. Usually the things will flow top to down. I think quite recently, or over almost a decade now, the things have changed. It's more of a channelized power, right, where it is collaborative, more of, we see peers to be working together, and it's no more a top-down approach, rather it is a collective approach. So that is about, some of the obvious facts about the power structure. When we talk about the social structures, then again, Indian society is quite patriarchal society still. We are trying to bring in the equity and equality, and I'm glad that we have moved the milestones there, because now when we see in the families and the familyhood, then we do see, I've seen in my parents' generation that, there used to be so much collaboration in decision making. Similarly between, if I take my example, then as a family we do a lot of collaboration. I'm sure the same story would be with lots of you, but unfortunately still, there is a gap where it is still at high places, still patriarchal. Now when Akansha says about hybrid, hybrid has added to these power structures. How it has had it is, primarily before that, if you see in the corporate structures, the expectations were a little different, to be present at office. The perceptions were that when you are in person, then some of the work can be better done, quickly done. But COVID actually pushed us all into this new experiment where it did not leave us the option to be, working in person. And we can see that how that kind of disruption help us all help evolve the industry, because it was the push of the hour, right? So organizations brought in the online working mode pretty quickly. Schools completely changed to the online working mode. And that brought in a new subset of essential features to the power structure, which is empathy and vulnerability, right? I don't think that we could have appreciated empathy and vulnerability at work power cultures more than now before. So Akansha, to your point, actually I feel that what two big traits or important traits that hybrid work model has brought to the power structure is pretty much about, empathy, where now we can feel the pain of the other person, or we can try to understand without doubting that, what could be the situation of the other person. So I think that has brought a new revolution to the power structure, is how I feel. I also want to add one more point from the equity and diversity point of view. Hybrid models did bring in a new concept, because now we have started to believe that in-person is not necessary. So I think it has opened up a little bit more plethora for the women to, come back and join to work. But at the same time, what I have seen is the bigger part of the hit was also taken by the women during that time, right? Because I think the room would not agree more enough with me that that was a time where, we stepped up as women, as house owners, to take the accountability of the housework, to get the kids onto their online sessions, and at the same time do the complete honesty to our jobs. And in this whole journey, I think we have also seen a dip. So I feel that, as a leader, at least I took that vow that I'm going to make sure or run those programs within my organization where we can bring more and more women back to work, bringing and elaborating these power structures across building the equity. So I think I've shared a lot of my views, and other panelists, would definitely have their opinions as well.
I just wanted to add a couple of things. So power for me, power structures, like it's a scary word. You feel like you have to navigate something which is scary. And as a result, I feel one of the things that pandemic did is it humanized or normalized an individual, a leader. And I remember I've been in calls with my clients whose cat is running around on the Zoom. All right, how much more normal can that be? Where earlier I would tell my daughter to not speak up in a Zoom call, and now I'm absolutely come and say hi, and I'll introduce you to my, to my stakeholder as well, or my senior as well. I think that really has helped us and helped me, and I think many of us to say, okay, my leader is also human. He or she has a family as well. And I felt that is the way that I think this navigation has become easier. I also feel, and since we are talking about women and gender diversity, I think it is also built empathy towards, for the working men or women on the other side of, so much needs to be taken care of at home. Somebody talked about the mental load of what is the menu, who will order it. I think all of that became much more right in front of you because you were home 24 hours, which was not there earlier. And I think that kind of helps into share your stories and how these power structures could help in the future.
That is definitely what has happened in terms of how this has brought us closer. I think the world is much smaller now. I think people connect a lot more. I think Debashish here, I would really like you to weigh in a little bit about how, in terms of how you've seen it evolve, and what would be your outlook on the way that it can evolve in the future also.
Sure. Thank you. I hope you can hear us because I can't hear. A little bit of echo is happening here. But professionally I'll touch upon, but personally speaking, the power structure at home for sure has changed. We have heard the colleagues speak about all the things that's happening, but now I own almost 25% of the home. I know who is our maid, I know where the kitchen is, I know where things are. So power structure at home for sure has changed. The breakfast is made by me now. So good fun there. On the professional front, one of the things that always, I completely agree with what both of you have said. But one of the things that really bothers me, and I keep on speaking about this to our culture team and the learning team and others, is the way, at least I have grown up to become a leader, and I think all of you will agree on to this, and many of you there will agree. The way we have grown up to leader, some of the traits that we were thinking of or we were taught is, example like executive skills, executive presence, how you walk into the room, how people perceive you, how do you dress. Those were some of the traits that we were taught, okay, and said you need to be particularly focused on. There was a concept of walk the corridor, how you walk on the floor and how can you notice what people are doing, how can you interact that 5 minutes and understand what's happening with that employee in that 5 minutes of interaction and how they are behaving and what can you do about it. So those were some of the traits. We were asked, like when you are talking to people, especially when there is a compensation review or especially when you are denying a promotion or anything like that, you need to look at the body language, how the hand movements are, feel the emotions, all of that. We have grown ourselves like that. All of a sudden, this pandemic has actually taught us completely opposite. Now there is no executive presence. In fact, on the calls, many a times when I don't switch on my video and people ask me to, I say, wait a minute, I am in my Ramu Kaka look right now, And it's okay, like you said, Apurva, it's okay to bring people or to joke or to say this, right? This was not the case earlier. How will you do that walk the corridor? How do you get that 5 minutes? You literally have to block a time. It's not a bumping in. So you always have to go into this preconceived agenda on what you want to talk. So where is this walk the corridor where you just bump in and ask a few things both ways, right? Associates can ask, we can judge and understand as well. Body language is completely out. Most of the things are like here. Now, is it a facial thing that you want to study? What is it? Maybe AI would help. to read some of it going forward basis? I don't know, but that's like one piece, I mean, apart from what we are anyway sharing, that I constantly challenge our learning and the culture teams and the P&O teams to say, how do you navigate that? Because if hybrid model is here to stay, which seems like, then some new skills have to be developed, and are we proactively working towards those is the question that I always ask.
You know, in fact, Debashish, to that point, I also feel it becomes a little bit more level playing field again. The power structures in the way originally were designed by leaders, 80%, 90%, 95% if you look at CXOs are men. So in some way, all of us, including yourself and other, we are learning it ourselves, you know, for the first time. So I don't think, in that way, we are, you know, we have a little bit of an equitable ecosystem again. So
of course, I know you were trying to say.
Yeah, I think as far as I remember, we've always worked in global format, right? We have people across the globe. We never thought it's an option to be hybrid though. And I think what COVID has done is it's really changed that parameter. So now you can work from anywhere, you can work hybrid. It actually, one thing that what I realized is we talk about empathy being a key skill that has actually changed. At least few people have learned purpose of life and empathy through COVID, if not anything else. And that means people now understand that it is okay for people to go back home and take the call because we are anyway dispersed team. Otherwise, there was always this misconception or perception that women want to go home early. Men could sit and afford to sit. I'm not saying everybody enjoyed it, but it was an option. But for many women, it was not an option. Now there's no such perception, right? Everybody goes home. Everybody is located in different locations. We have teams across multiple locations and it's okay. Everybody understands. So to me, that's been a big shift, which means it's become, to your point, it's become a very level playing field. And you can, I know people come from Tamil Nadu and different borders and they don't need to be in the same location because it's 2 days. People travel for their 2 days and then work from 2 days, 3 days, whatever. And then they work from home for the rest of the day. It just gives them that opportunity much more. And this opens up a huge window for women, which otherwise was shut down a little bit.
Right. I think I really do agree with everything that you've said. And I just want to come back to Debashish's point that you've mentioned that there are certain skills that we have to actively develop. And I just wanted to know that what did you have in mind when you mentioned the skills?
No, so navigating power structures, I mean, if you think about like a boardroom kind of a scenario, and there are like a few things, you know, diplomacy is a big, you know, how do you articulate, how do you make sure that people around you, you know, understand where you come from and, you know, what's the logic behind things. So context and the logic there. One of the things that I do want to speak here, because this is like a little bit on the sort of you know, diversity side as well, is this one piece that always comes up, which is beyond the boardroom as well, right? There's a big factor of what happens in the boardroom. 80%, 60%, depending on which culture, which office, where you sort of belong, of those decisions are made beyond the boardroom. And how do you navigate through that? You know, a lot of skills like your influencing skills, you know, articulation, the depth and the meaning of what other person is saying. Those are the kind of things that one needs to, that's what I was sort of trying to sort of refer to as you navigate through the power structure and the cultures of the company. And each company have a very different mindset. Some are very focused top-down approach, there you navigate it very differently. Some have a little bit more open, sort of a matrix kind of a culture. There you have to struggle a little bit more in terms of how many nodes do you want to check and, you know, check box before you go into the actual sort of, you know, meeting and so on and so forth. So
if I could just add, right, one easiest thing to do is switch your video on. Because you're present there, and that's the easiest thing to do because visibility is very, very, very important. I know it's not always easy to switch on the video, and the looks doesn't matter. I've seen men come in shorts and then it really doesn't matter and nobody cares, right? So being visible is very, very important irrespective of physical, or now it is much easier because it's hybrid. Just switch on the video. That makes it so much more easier to be visible.
I mean, how many of you, if I could just add, how many of you have heard this phrase where you are not visible on the floor? Erstwhile. Almost everybody, right? Performance management, that is like one of the top thing outside of work.
Yeah.
I think that's the visibility on the camera now that I guess a lot will matter, because it's, I don't know what else you can do to be visible on.
You know,
Apurva is saying something.
when I think of power structure navigation, I feel, why do we take out clients for dinner? Why do we play golf over the weekends? It's such an old saying. I think all of that is about building interpersonal skills, right? And I think one, I feel, and I don't know, but a lot of women, girls, young girls like yourself start questioning networking as a in their mind. Oh no, my work will talk. Why do I need to go meet somebody else, or why do I need to build that? I think that itself, it's like, proactively thinking that this is the network, or this is the set of allies, champions that I need to build, I think goes a long way in the building of these interpersonal skills as well.
Absolutely. And somehow there is this, again, misconception that women cannot network. And I don't know if I can ask the audience here, how many of your parents, right? How many of you know all the kids, your kids' friends and their parents? You know it, right? And you can easily network like this. And it's the same at work.
Yeah.
It's not different. It's just that you think for your kid doing it, you're doing it, just do it for yourself.
Yeah.
And it matters. Networking takes you to places.
I think that's
Those who
what-
have not raised hand, just a funny thing, those who have not raised hand are wondering, should I have kids or not? Sorry. I had to say this, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Debashish had committed to us that he'll make some controversial statements. This is one of them.
Yes.
So I think I just wanted to bring home the point that you both mentioned, that women, like you said before, that there are conversations, there are decisions made outside of the boardroom that we have to navigate now in the setup of a hybrid work model. And I think I would like to start with Apurva. Do you think that there is a need for more informal coaching? I know we've had this conversation earlier, and I think that your insight on this would be very valuable. Do you think that women particularly need more informal coaching in terms of how to navigate the outside of their interaction now with this model?
Yeah, I think everybody needs coaching. I'm a very strong believer of coaching, mentoring, depending on what, in your journey. I think women get very less of informal coaching. I think that is what I was trying to say, because see, normally you say familiarity breeds contempt. I think familiarity in the corporate world breeds comfort. I have been in situation with imagine a kind of a boardroom in which I'm entering a room full of 40 men. It's a smallish room. And while my confidence in my personality wouldn't hinder me, I will still navigate the room saying, which is the least threatening group? Oh, he talks about football. I have no idea. Cricket maybe a little. All right. So these kind of things kind of help in. And as a result, when I don't see enough role models, I don't go and approach them, and I don't get, okay, come along with me, I'll take you for a cup of coffee. Even coffee, forget drinks and smoke. We kind of sometimes go to the extreme, but even coffee, sometimes people are not exactly thinking about the same when it comes to coaches. So I do feel that women, because there are fewer women in the leadership positions, they don't get enough informal coaching. And as a result, how do I raise my hand and ask a leader, male or female, will you be my champion? I think that's a very important one, and I haven't heard of anybody. I misuse it. I haven't heard of anybody saying no. Because everybody would love to. I think you just have to raise your hand, but that would really help as well, because the informal doesn't have it. Can we create more structures to make it more formal?
Right.
I think I just want to add on what Apurva said, that nowadays you see that structured mentoring and mentee, and I would say that it is also sometimes about the structure is there, the resources are there. It is just a hand apart that you really have to raise your hand, or really have to just go and utilize it, because then at the end of it, it is up to every individual how we utilize the opportunities around us, because if we sit behind the closed doors, then how to say that opportunity do knock once but not twice. But even to grab that opportunity, you will have to open the door the first time or the second time, right? So I think we have come a way where now the resources are there. Early on, there weren't any resources. So there are mentor and mentorship forums within your organizations or also externally, where you yourself can also reach out. And then there are sponsorship programs, right? So I think it is very, very important, especially for the young women and the middle tier women who strive to really take the executive roles, who really strive to really get to the leadership roles. Because until and unless you will try to coach yourself and learn from the resources available, how would you learn and step up to the next levels? As organization also, I think most of the organizations now do have the women networking events. So it is more about leveraging. I think how Saraswati also mentioned, right, that it is sometimes just about our mindset. How can you network for your kids because you feel that is really essential and I can do it. I think the magic lies in I can do it, believing in yourself. At workplaces, we just don't believe in ourselves. And there is no reason why we should feel that, we cannot do it. At least give it a try. What worse could happen, If you think what worse could happen, I could get a no. But what best could happen? You could get what you're aspiring for. So, that's what I just wanted to add, that leverage the resources around you.
And if you're a woman now, I think you're in the best place, right? There's so much focus on women. Sometimes you have to reflect back and say, are we being inclusive, right? We talk so much about diversity and inclusion. To me, sometimes consciously, I want to be sure I'm inclusive, right? To the point of mentoring and coaching, every organization is putting so much effort in diversity. I hate being called diversity on female women employees, whether it is career coaching, mentoring, make use of it, right? Inside your organization, there is so much happening, leverage that. Outside, there's lots happening. I understand we have all gone through phases where we don't have bandwidth for anybody because you have to balance work at home and everything. But at some point of time, if you want to grow, networking and mentors outside are very important. And to what Apurva said, reach out to people. There are people willing to help. And you need to, and if I just look at it, may sound very philosophical. The reason men and women coexist is because each one come with their own strength. And if we just network with women alone or men alone, I think we are not learning the 50% of the interpersonal skills that they would have otherwise. So network either which ways, right? Get mentors who are not specifically women alone. And then more important, as you grow, you need to get sponsors as well. It's very different from coaching, mentoring, because you have to build your credibility and then you have to have people who believe in you that you can actually go to places. So get sponsors eventually.
As Apurva has already said, sorry, you were saying something?
No, so go ahead.
No, as Apurva has already said, I make some of these controversial statements if I may. I think over time, I think the stereotyping things has changed as well. That's what I have observed. Okay? I see a lot of men, like you gave an example that, hey, my work will speak, and a lot of female colleagues who are really outgoing and really making sure that they are out there, visible on the floor and things like that. So I believe it has already moved the needle with all the programs and initiatives that we just spoke about. And here is the statement that I was thinking of, is the next generation, like after all of you as well, the ones whom I see as interns or the ones who are the new recruits now, I feel this is completely not non-existence is what I see, coming up. That's just my observation. I don't know if others have observed similar or other things.
I'd love to challenge it a little or probably debate it. As always, we've done that earlier as well. But I feel that when I was 21-year-old, fresh out of college, post-grad, I'm exactly one amongst the many, right? And as a result, there was no difference. I would speak up. I do feel that as you go up the ladder, I think there is an element of, oh, am I good enough? The imposter syndrome we talked about. I don't see enough, so is there a possibility I can reach there? And all of those things pull us down a little, years of, a little bit of conditioning. Priorities changing. So probably there is a difference, and that's why it's more towards your tenured professional career that you need a little bit more nudge, push, enablement, or equity-based programs so that we can have. But I do agree with you absolutely, Devashi, that when we start, the generation, you look at them and you're like, wow, I wish we were like that as well.
Yeah, they have a very different thought process now. So.
Akansha, I think AIM also has a mentoring program, right? If I'm
I
not
would have to ask Kashyap to tell you about that, sorry. But
just one point I want to add what Apurva said, right? That I think you made a very good point about getting up to the ladders. How many times do women actively set aspirational goals for them? See, when we enter into the industry, we are very, very enthusiastic and we want to do good. But how many times have we ever thought that I want to be the CTO of a company? We generally don't set aspirational goals for ourselves, and that is also somewhere around that we just get contented. We feel satisfied too soon, too early.
I don't know, I would like to challenge that. I think there are enough women with that aspiration, but there are also enough challenges to navigate through. And not everybody wants to be CTO or a CXO or a CEO, and it's irrespective of the gender, right? I know a lot of men who've taken break or who have taken a back seat saying, I will support a woman. And that never existed a generation back.
Yeah.
So to Devashish's point, paradigm is shifting. It has changed a lot. There are enough women now who are in the CXO level, and it will continue to change. So I think it's not just about raising hand. We still have barriers to navigate through, and I'm sure we will get there.
I hear a lot of whispers from the audience. I think we should open this up to them.